Hey BookTube friends, let's see what I got for Christmas. So I thought I would pop in with a little Christmas book haul. Most of the books on this haul are gifts, but there are a couple that I purchased at a bookstore over break, and I thought that I would include them as well. I do have to point out that I have the most amazing friends and family, and they seem to know what I like pretty well. The first book that I have is Kenneth Anger's Hollywood Babylon. This is the complete and unabridged legendary underground classic of Hollywood's darkest and best kept secrets. Will this be salacious? I certainly hope so. But I think it will be, because as I flip through the pages, there are quite a few pretty graphic and scandalous photographs, so I won't do that on camera, but I will show you one. Here we have the legendary Gloria Swanson, and I just thought I would flip to her page because I watched her performance earlier today in Sunset Boulevard, which is a very famous 1950 film noir, and she was phenomenal. She also has a Kennedy connection. She was actually a long-term mistress of Joe Sr., so there you go. You know, at some point there's a Kennedy connection with me. But I think this will be a very fun read. It's probably a little bit more of an expose, than I would normally read, but I'm very interested in this particular era of Hollywood history. Obviously the Kennedy connections, but also I just love the films of that era, in particular the film noir. So very excited about that one. The next one I have is Germania, in Wayward Pursuit of the Germans and Their History by Simon Winder, and this looks like a fun little piece of historical curiosities and oddities throughout German history, so I'm very interested to see what this one has to offer, and I must say the cover of this book is just so awesome. I love it. The next book that I have is the most gorgeous copy of To Kill a Mockingbird I have ever seen. And this is one of the Barnes & Noble collector's editions, and this is one of the only books that ever made me cry. So the friend that got me this knew what he was doing. The next book I have is Liberation by Imogen Keeley, and this is World War II historical fiction, so you can't go wrong there. And it's also based on the true story of Nancy Wake, who was a World War II spy and French resistance fighter. The next book I have, I actually purchased as a gift for someone who is very into mycology, and unfortunately they already had it. So they very graciously let me keep the book, and that is Entangled Life, How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures by Merlin Sheldrake. And I'm not someone who is very into mushrooms or science, but after I purchased this, I came across quite a few videos on BookTube talking about how amazing this book was. And the people who reviewed it weren't necessarily people that were into science, so I feel pretty confident that this will be a very approachable book, and I hope I will learn something new. The next two books I have are both Agatha Christie. I have Endless Night and Crooked House, and I wanted both of these books because they are on Christie's list of personal favorites, so if they're the Queen of Mysteries favorites, then they have to be mine as well. The next book I have is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, and I'm actually doing a buddy read of this in February with Gemma over at Gem of Books, and I'm super excited about this because I was a fan of the miniseries. The chemistry and the epic friendship that was portrayed by Tommy Lee Jones and Robert Duvall was just phenomenal. So I'm hoping that this book really replicates that same feeling for me and really goes beyond that. So I'm excited to dive into that one. The next one I have is probably one of the most appropriate books for a librarian, and that is The Library, an Illustrated History by Stuart A.P. Murray. And this actually takes us all the way back to antiquity. So I'm very excited to see what little bits of history this has to offer related to libraries. And of course, this wouldn't be a book haul on my channel without a couple of Kennedy books. So the first one I have is Coup in Dallas, The Decisive Investigation into Who Killed JFK by H.P. Abarelli Jr. And this was just published in 2021, so I'm very excited to see what this one has to offer. I also have a copy of Kennedy's Avenger, Assassination Conspiracy and the Forgotten Trial of Jack Ruby by Dan Abrams. And this was a pretty cool gift because it is an author signed copy. The next two books I actually purchased myself. The first one is Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, and I made this purchase because Lady Jane Books actually asked if I wanted to do a buddy read of this with her in March, and we thought it would be interesting to read this book since we both read My Dark Vanessa last year. And we thought it was one of those books that we didn't necessarily want to tackle alone. Anytime I get to tag team with Lady Jane, I'm here for it. So immediately jumped on board with that. But when I went to the bookstore to look for a copy of Lolita, serendipitously, I came across The Real Lolita, A Lost Girl, An Unthinkable Crime, and a Scandalous Masterpiece by Sarah Weinman. And this is about a kidnapping that occurred in 1948. It was an 11-year-old girl, and the kidnapper claimed to be an FBI agent. And apparently this author makes some connections between that real case and the publication of Lolita. I messaged Jane and said, "You're not going to believe what I found at the bookstore today." And I was hoping that she would agree to do a fiction-nonfiction pairing for our buddy read, and she did, so I'm so excited. We both thought it would add a lot to the discussion to have this nonfiction book paired with Lolita. I'm very excited to see what we take away from these two. So be sure to check out our channels in March. We'll probably be doing a live show discussion for those. I hope all of you out there got some bookish goodies over Christmas, and if you did, please let me know what titles you got in the comments, and if you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought about them. And thanks for watching. I hope you guys are having a tremendous, terrific, stupendous, top-notch kind of day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.